When you see a portrayal of somebody that's like you or somebody you would never, ever, ever meet in your life, I think that's worth trying to distribute and to get people interested in. I mean, the power of the theater never goes away.
From NCPR, welcome to Northwards. People, ideas, and conversations from and about Northern New York, Vermont, and beyond. I'm Mitch Teich.
Support for the Northwards podcast comes from the J.C. Steiniger and M.E. McDonald Charitable Fund at Adirondack Community Foundation in support of the Adirondack Community Foundation, building stronger Adirondack communities. Mitch, did you wake up with a song in your head this morning?
Sometimes I do, but I don't think I did this morning. Good. I woke up with a song in my heart, but I always do.
And that song was?
Oh, what was that song? That's a good question. It was, no, actually, if I did wake up with a song in my head or one appeared shortly after I woke up, it was Now or Never Now by the Canadian band Metric.
Oh, I know Metric. I don't know that song, though.
Oh,
I know the tune that's in the Black Sheep is the name of the song.
Oh, I don't know if I know that particular song.
Well, by our powers combined, we know two Metric songs.
I know more than two Metric songs.
Well, that doesn't work for my joke.
No, it doesn't. But anyway, and actually, if we were really making a good joke, we'd know 10 Metric songs.
I like that.
Base 10 band.
Yes. You know, Mitch, I bought a new set of socks, and they're just a little bit too long, and I don't like that.
Are they creeping up to the cavern behind your knee?
No, they're not that long. They said they're ankle socks, but like that's not an ankle. That's like above my ankle.
Yeah, it's sort of above ankle and below shin.
What's the point?
I don't know.
Don't do things halfway.
You know, I bought a pair of socks. Actually, I bought like a multi-pack of socks called
Exciting
Slouch Socks not that long ago, and I bought this set of socks, and I don't remember what led me to buy them, but they looked like perfectly nice socks, and they were on sale, and my wife said, "Oh, I've heard of slouch socks," and so I naturally assumed that they were a thing. And then I mentioned it to a couple of people, and they were like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about.
They're just
what do they do?
They are socks that go up kind of mid-calf, but they're not really tight. And so I guess some people let them slide down their leg and gather in a bunchy sort of way at their ankle. Like they're some kind of, they're not me, that's for sure.
Like Pinhead from the Hellraiser movies who just lives to torture people? That sounds like a nightmare.
I thought it reminded me more of Flashdance and leg warmers.
Never seen Flashdance. Never seen...
I think Metric does the song from now.
Also never seen Dirty Dancing. I've also never seen... what's the other one? The other one about dancing.
Fame.
Never seen Fame.
Oh, you're not going to live forever.
You're right. I should really move those up on my to-watch list.
Saturday Night Fever.
Never seen it.
You're just you just don't have your dancing shoes on.
You know, I like musical movies.
I'm not sure I've seen Fame either, by the way.
Why would you bring it up then? That's not fair.
Because you were trying to come up with the names of dancing movies.
Well, I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I like musicals, I guess. Sweeney Todd is okay.
Yeah.
That's the only one that comes to mind.
See, there's some musicals that that's the only musical you can think of. Some musicals I can deal with, and others, like anything Baz Luhrmann has directed, they're like fever dreams.
Yeah, he doesn't really do it for me. My former sister-in-law was singing the praises of, what is it, Strictly Ballroom? Is that his first one?
Possibly.
And I was just like, okay. I don't think this is for me. But not everything has to be for me.
That is absolutely right. That is Baz Luhrmann's motto, actually. Yeah. Not everything has to be for Ethan Shanty.
I was just talking to a friend about Gremlins 2. And hold on, this is going somewhere. And I told him I watched Gremlins 2, and the resounding thought in my head was, who is this movie for? Like, the movie's for me because it is wacky and insane and totally nonsensical. But that's not what like the general movie-going audience wants, is what I want. But they didn't make that movie for me. They just like it's a fever dream. Have you seen Gremlins 2?
I've not seen Gremlins 2.
Oh
but,
my God! It breaks the fourth wall. There's Hulk Hogan. A human guy, gets married to a monster gremlin.
You're saying nobody told the makers that they couldn't.
I'm saying I think that Joe Dante, the filmmaker, told the studio he was making a very different movie, and then it was too late.
Well, I guess we have to release it.
Anyway, today we're talking about.
Well, so if some movies are not for you and some movies are for you, where do movies written by Nora Ephron come into the mix for you?
They're kind of for me. I kind of like them.
You've Got Mail, When Harry Met Sally, the general Nora Ephron canon of he's going to look up what the Nora Ephron movies he does like.
Because I was thinking You've Got Mail, and maybe that's the only one that I've seen. Let's find out.
Well, they're well written light romantic comedies.
Hold on. I'm scrolling.
That have a little something to say about often the relationship between men and women.
It turns out that I have seen exactly 2 Nora Ephron movies, which are You've Got Mail and Michael. And Michael,
Michael.
I don't remember at all. So
we talk about Michael in this interview, I believe. So we're talking with Dianne Dreyer, who worked for years in Hollywood, often on Nora Ephron movies, but on many other movies as well, and developed, I don't want to say a lifelong friendship, but a long friendship with Nora Ephron. And Nora Ephron passed away some time ago and clearly meant a lot to Dianne Dreyer, who now lives most of the time in the Adirondacks. And so she has gone from being in Hollywood to retiring to now living in the Adirondacks, where she is taking a turn directing a stage play of a Nora Ephron play, a stage version of a Nora and Delia Ephron play, actually, called Love, Loss, and What I Wore, which, she'll tell you about the play. But we had a chance to talk, and I got to know her a little bit, and she talked a lot about why Nora Ephron was so important to her, and what it's like to go from, working on these often very big budget Hollywood pictures to working with some people who maybe have never even appeared on stage before in a regional production of a play.
And even if for someone like me, I haven't seen a ton of Nora Ephron movies, it's still undeniable the effect that her sensibilities and her style of writing had on romantic comedies, which is one of the most popular and lucrative genres of filmmaking. Like, her DNA is widespread. Like, it exists in the current landscape of modern romantic comedies too.
And the thing that always struck me about Nora Ephron movies is how great the dialogue was, and you could almost think of them as they're not radio plays, obviously, because there's a huge visual component, but the interplay between the characters really makes them stand out, and so among those movies are some of my favorites of all time. My wife's favorite movie, if I can speak for her here, is When Harry Met Sally, which she did not direct, but she wrote, and Rob Reiner directed that film, who is a genius in his own right.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I was going to say, is like someone like Rob Reiner is the person who should handle the sharp-witted dialogue of Nora Ephron.
Yeah. So really interesting conversation, and another reminder that there are some truly remarkable people who live in the North Country, and one of them is Dianne Dreyer. Welcome to Northwards.
I'm very happy to be here to plug this play.
Well, before we plug the play, tell us about your connection with Nora Ephron. When did you first get to know her, and why has she been so important to you over the years?
Well, she was about to make a movie called Michael with John Travolta, William Hurt, and Andy McDowell, and they were going to shoot it in Texas. And she needed a script supervisor, and her line producer, who I had known, suggested me. At the time, I was making a movie called The English Patient in North Africa, and I got on one of those early generation massive cell phones from the desert and had a conversation with Nora, and she hired me. And so then I met her in Texas, and we started rehearsals and going over the script. And I think it was the day something clicked on the day because John Travolta plays an angel. And he plays a kind of schlubby angel, right? He's like a little, not a angelic angel necessarily. And one day I looked at Nora and I said, he should pluck one of his feathers and use it as a toothpick. And she just looked at me and she went, huh. And then she went up to John and she whispered in John's ear. And the next thing you know, he had done that. And there was just that moment when you think, I now have someone sitting next to me who thinks like me and, doesn't hold back, isn't afraid to say so. And then we made You've Got Mail. And after we made You've Got Mail, she started giving me a producing credit because of the input, and she's like, I had a very blessed career in the motion picture industry because I worked with spectacular directors, including Nora, who welcomed a voice. And there are plenty of directors who don't welcome a collaborative voice, or they only want to hear from their cinematographer or their editor, but they want producers out of the room. They don't. But when you're a script supervisor, which was what I was, you have to sit side by side. You're watching every aspect of a movie get made, and you're ensuring the editorial integrity of the project. So you're monitoring the light and the dialogue and how people use props. And, you just, if you don't have a voice in that situation, I don't know how you do the job because it's just too hard. You have to sit and watch people act for 12 hours a day. And if you don't have an opinion on it, I would shoot myself. And, Nora, she is talented and gifted, and she was an incredibly surgical writer in many respects. She still was completely open to improvisation. And if somebody could make it funnier, do it. She was not precious about any of it. So then I made all her movies after that, and we became friends, and I was sort of in her political circle, fundraisers for Al Franken and Howard Dean and all kinds of people. I mean, I always say that had Nora lived, I think that Al Franken would still be a sitting senator from Minnesota for a variety of reasons. And it's one of the reasons I think I wanted to resurrect this play, because I've missed her voice in this whole Me Too era and this whole political era because she was sharp and fearless. I just think that Nora was, she started as a journalist and we miss her. We miss her. And people keep writing books about her. I was recently interviewed by someone in the UK about my experiences with Nora. And she's not doing a biography, but she's doing a book about why Nora's work is still so relevant. Because it is, because Nora had boy, she had class. I mean, and, in terms of this particular piece and people describing what they were wearing, I mean, I don't think we're living through a great time for fashion, at least not in America. I feel most of the time people are walking around the world in pajamas and something that's like slippers. And I think it changes the way we behave and how we interact with each other. There's just this overall casualness where anything goes and nobody, I mean, my own experience with clothing is that when you put on something you love to wear and you look good, you behave differently in a room. I mean, I don't even go get the newspaper in, sweatpants. I just don't. I take the sweatpants off, put on the jeans, go get the paper, put the sweatpants back on. So that's how I roll.
It is funny to think of that because that is exactly why my wife has made fun of me over the years because I refuse to go out to get the mail and the mail comes in our front door now, so it's not an issue. But for years, when we lived in a place where we had to go to the end of the driveway to get the mail, right, I would put on jeans and I mean even a sweatshirt, but I refused to go outside in my pajamas to get it.
So no Tony Soprano.
No, not at all. Well, and I also think, I mean, you bring that up, how people behave differently. You think about the things that go on airplanes today, and it really wasn't that long ago in our culture where people used to get dressed up to go on an airplane.
Oh, yeah. airline travel, we could do a whole chapter on the disintegration of the experience of airline travel. But, one thing I'll say about Nora is that she also lived that way. She was a very well-appointed person, and movie sets are, typically treacherous. There's cable everywhere. You're making rain, you're making snow, you're doing whatever. Like it's dark, it's noisy, it's hard to navigate. So, and yet, I think that Nora believed, and I think she's right, even though everybody certainly respected and admired her intellect. But, when someone walks up to you that's completely well appointed and says something specific, you pay attention in a different way. And it gives you credibility, because you appear to be a serious person, which you are. I mean, I've also seen that backfire on her. We did when we were doing Michael, she came to set one day in a pair of Armani wide leg pants. And the dog that attacks Bob Hoskins was trained to attack a flapping wide leg pant. And so Sparky went after Nora
Oh no.
for a brief second. No, no, no skin puncture, but it was pretty funny because nobody had told the director that the dog was being chained to chase a flapping wide leg pant. But she was elegant in every way. Her home, her she was an amazing hostess, fantastic cook, and loved really the whole experience of putting people together. Um, and one of the things that's fun about this play is that I cast three people who've never been on stage before. They're not shy, but it's been wonderful to watch them embrace the material and just give acting a go because one of them is 65, one of them is 40, and one of them is 62. I don't remember her exact age, but they all have just been incredibly diligent about embracing the material. And that's really fun to watch, to bring people on stage for the first time.
How do you introduce yourself to people who have never done this before? Because I would imagine it could be a little intimidating if you're 62 and you're giving it a shot and you show up and you find out that your director has worked on films like You've Got Mail and The English Patient.
I'm not an intimidating person. I don't think I am anyway. I think that, one of the reasons I got into the business in general was a love of actors, and when people say, actors shouldn't give speeches at the Oscars that are political or they shouldn't, I mean, in fact, I would argue the exact opposite, that actors just by virtue of the kinds of roles they tackle over the course of a lifetime, they are some of the smartest people you will ever meet in your life. And we could be talking about Hugh Grant, we could be talking about Tom Hanks, we could be talking about Meryl Streep, we could be talking about a lot of people. And because when they play a role, they dive in and they discover culture, language, politics, gender roles. I mean, they're so experienced. And when they have an opinion about the world, it's usually based on lived experience, right? So I find them to be incredibly compelling. And when I see an actor working that hard, the instinct is to protect them. So I try to say to every actor who's working, certainly for me now, I want it to be a safe space. I don't want you to do anything that's going to make you uncomfortable. But you have to trust the language of the piece. These are all authentic stories. When Nora and Delia wrote Love, Loss, and What I Wore, it was based on this book by Eileen Beckerman, but they solicited stories from many, many other people in order to come up with these monologues. These are not all Eileen Beckerman's monologues. I remember telling Nora, I didn't know why she was asking me. I didn't know what piece she was writing, but I wrote her an email, a very funny email about watching my mother put on a pair of pantyhose, which was dramatic. And we had a lot of laughs over it. Didn't make the play, but, because it didn't have the arc of a story, which most of these monologues do in this play about a specific experience. But I think, when I say that Nora was a surgical writer, I mean, I think her word choice and Delia's word choice, obviously, they managed to condense a bigger story into a sharp, witty exchange. If you trust it, it's all there for you. You don't have to work too hard to discover it.
Do you go into a production like this with a less experienced group? And I don't want to I don't mean to diminish in any way the people who are part of this theater group, but they do not have the same set of acting experiences as the people that you have worked with over the years. But do you go into a production like this with a similar set of expectations? I mean, is it about getting the best out of people no matter what their experience is?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think that you have to set the bar high and just keep chipping away at it until you might not get as high as you want it, but you get pretty close, and you can be, relentless. I mean, it's that old joke. How do you get to Carnegie Hall, right?
Practice.
Practice. So, with the less experienced actors or the zero experienced actors, I spent a lot of time with them and just drill, drill, drill. And I think they got there, and I think they're excited, and I'm excited for them because you test movies, right? You have a test audience, but when you do a play, you really never have that moment where you start with just a fake audience or a test audience. So I think that's the going to be the biggest learning curve to see if the show gets any laughs, like how they handle the laughs and how they handle the experience, the interaction with an audience. So we'll see how that happens, but I hope they're going to be great.
As I read the play, I was sort of simultaneously thinking about how women and men would perceive it when they see it, or obviously when they might read it. And I would imagine that just about any woman who sees this play would get to thinking about the significant pieces of their wardrobe through the years and how those pieces have shaped their lives. What are those things for you?
I'm a shoe girl. Mel DeMarco's had nothing on me. I would confess that I make a lot of judgments. I mean, I usually look at what a person is wearing on their feet. And again, because of the way modern culture, modern society, modern American culture functions, it's less and less of a tell because everybody's wearing Crocs But I do think that, I mean, I had a friend from Paris. She was living in New York briefly, and it was in that period in New York City where people in business, women in business, would typically wear sneakers and carry their shoes in a bag, which Catherine thought was completely absurd because they make very comfortable shoes with a small heel. You can look fabulous. Why you do that? Now you look terrible. So the whole time that you're on the bus or the subway in the bar after work or wherever it is you go, you look like it doesn't connect, and you only wear the shoes when you're in the office. So for who? The whole thing didn't make any sense. But I like to care for clothing. I have clothing that's really I've had for my whole life. I have a pair of jeans from high school, and I'm 69 years old. I have clothes that were my mother's. It's again, we live in a time now where fashion is largely disposable. But it's funny. There's a line in The English Patient where Kristen Scott Thomas says, "A woman should never learn to sew." But I learned to sew, and I take care of my clothing, and I really like it. And I remember where I bought it, why I bought it, how much money I dropped on it. I could tell you about a pair of boots. I produced a movie for Peter Hedges called Pieces of April. We made it for nothing. Nobody really got paid until we sold the movie at Sundance. The short version is that when we wrapped the movie, his agent gave me a gift certificate to Barney's, which is a pretty hot department store in New York City. And I went in and I bought the most expensive pair of boots I ever bought in my life, because this was just prize money in some way. I don't think if I'd earned that much money, I would have bought those boots. This is a gift certificate. This is mine to have. And, you could walk into Barney's, you could go to the dress department, the coat department, the jewelry department, whatever. But I went right to the shoe department.
You have me thinking about the monologue from this play in which I can't remember who the narrator is, but she walks us through her love-hate relationship with heels and then flats
Yes.
and then Birkenstocks and then
Yes.
eventually back to heels.
Yes. Even though, and it's funny because the actress playing that part was an early wearer of Birkenstocks. So she has to really betray her own experience when saying, oh, you couldn't be friends with somebody who wears Birkenstocks because Birkenstocks, you gotta love them, man. I mean, I actually, personally, my money's in the mattress, but I actually bought stock in Birkenstocks because of the number of people I see wearing them and the number of like fancy designers want to do a Birkenstock. Prada wants to do a Birkenstock and Celine wants to do a Birkenstock. They sort of women have discovered in some way that you can actually be in a comfortable shoe and not be in pain. But I definitely have suffered quite a bit of pain in heels for a look. And what's authentic in the speech is that whatever Birkenstocks, ballet flats, whatever they are, they don't do that thing for your leg. We were just watching because Claudia Cardinale recently passed away, so we were watching Eight and a Half. And sometimes when you look at those Italian actresses and in scenes where they're barefoot, they walk on their toes. It's hilarious.
As though they're wearing
As
heels.
though they're wearing high heels because they know how their leg
Yep.
looks.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
everything shifts, right? Your shoulders go up, your back goes straighter. It's just the way it is. I wouldn't go so far to say I'm a fan of foot binding, but Birkenstocks are never going to make your leg look great. They're just going to be comfortable and they might be pretty. Like they're different fabrics now and you add a cool sock, there's a little wiggle room to work with a Birkenstock.
I have a closed toe Birkenstock that people refer to as my blue suede shoes because they are both blue and suede. I found myself as a dad and a husband and a son feeling kind of sad by the end of the play, really. Sad for what I guess I now think of as a sometimes unwinnable struggle that the important women in my life have gone through. Maybe wistful, is that a better word?
Wistful's a better word, and I think because that last clothesline of like the gold lame dress I wore when I snuck into a Sting concert or the poodle skirt. I mean, I think those have happy memories. I think Gingy's story, which is the through line of the play, you know, it is a sad but hopeful story because of the granddaughter. But poor old Gingy. I mean, and that's the truest excerpt from the Beckerman story, which is that she loses her mother at 12. And her father walks away at 13. When you're raised by aunts and grandmothers, you're skipping a generation, right? So you don't have the benefit of your mom sort of watching the culture we're all growing up in and allowing you to incorporate some of it, right? And that whole issue of, look, Nora was born, I think, in 1941, and none of them were expected to have careers. They were expected to marry into the career they want. If you want a career in architecture, marry an architect. You know, and she had talented parents, but and she didn't speak about them often. But Delia wrote a book about her father's alcoholism, and I think both their parents were alcoholics, and Nora is the ultimate survivor. And I had the pleasure of meeting her after she found Nick and married Nick and was with the love of her life. So I only knew her as Happy Nora. I did not know the heartburn Nora but the default was write about it. Just, that's how you get through anything is to just write about it. And as she would say, and get Meryl Streep to play you. Because she'll play you better than yourself. And heartburn, and then her even, I mean, I didn't know her then, but just looking at it in retrospect, the idea like when Nora became a director, when she like Carl Reiner had directed her work, Mike Nichols had directed her work, and when she finally said, actually, no, I'm going to do this. That's a big moment in life. And she was brilliant at it. And she was very well prepared, not like directors I won't name who come and just think it's all going to happen by magic or we'll figure it out on the day. When I'll waste time and I'll lose a day on the schedule. Nora was incredibly responsible. She had a bit of a reputation for firing people. But her logic and her theory was if a studio is going to give me $40 million to make a movie, I'm going to make the best movie I can make. And if you don't pull your weight, I'll find somebody who wants to do the movie. Like if I mean, I've seen prop guys go like this, like it's like the scene calls for blueberry muffins from a place, and Nora, huge foodie, knows if she says the muffin has to come from this place in Los Angeles, and the guy shows up with like just run of the mill blueberry muffins, and she says, Diane, doesn't it say in the script that these muffins should be? I said, it does. Prop guy's gone the next day. If you don't read the material, you're not in the game. So even though she was exacting and demanding, she was also the funniest and smartest person in the room until we got to a movie which was not successful at all, but which was called Bewitched. She wrote this movie, she cast Nicole Kidman, but she also cast Will Ferrell and Stephen Colbert. And this is when I realized that the comedians in the world are also the smartest people in the room. I mean, the joy of that set, and how funny and how smart and how well read and how articulate. Being with those three people almost every day was insanely fun. I mean, I don't think in those days, I don't think Stephen Colbert back then ever thought he was going to be what he has become. I don't think Jon Stewart did. I don't think any of them did, that they would actually be in charge of the news in some way. Back then they were just funny and we enjoyed, I mean, the movie didn't do very well. I don't understand. I thought the criticism was very unfair. I will say, Nicole Kidman is not as funny as Meg Ryan. But I would also say that the audience somehow just wouldn't accept any other Samantha. It was Elizabeth
Right,
Montgomery or
right.
no, and it didn't happen. She was very upset. That was the failure of that movie nearly ended her career, I think.
It's it's interesting and heartbreaking to think of the movies that we have missed out on in these last, just the times we're living through now, how she would have commented on them through her art and craft.
Oh yes, I miss it a lot. I just miss even a conversation with her lunch, because she, as I said, she was fearless, and I don't think she would necessarily give up hope, but I do think she would have been loud, at a time when people aren't loud anymore. I mean, Nora was very, very well aware of, what she had in life. And I don't think, and I think she had plenty, and I don't think she would have been afraid of losing it or not being able to command a $10 million salary anymore. I think she would have been at a place in her life where she would have said, this is more important. And that's what's alarming about the times we live in, is how many people who have that won't actually risk it or use it. That and an industry that's just completely risk averse at this point.
Yeah.
The motion picture industry is thriving in Europe, but here not so much. And, that's a loss for a lot of my friends and colleagues, which I think is going to be painful down the line. There are a variety of reasons for that, but I think, you write something spectacular and you can't get anybody to make the movie. Or they will only want to make it if you change this, this, and this, and that completely sanitizes or is antithetical to the piece you were writing in the first place. There's a very famous story, not about Nora, but, when we made The Talented Mr. Ripley, Harvey Weinstein wanted Anthony to change the ending, and he wanted Ripley to get caught. And Anthony said to Harvey Weinstein, you don't understand the movie. I'm not doing that. So what did Harvey Weinstein do? He gave the movie no Oscar campaign whatsoever, even though it had Matt Damon, Jude Law, Gwyneth Paltrow, Kate Blanchett, Philip Seymour Hoffman. I mean, Gave it no money, attention, press, push, Oscar push at all, because he was so vindictive with Anthony about him not being willing to change the ending. And instead, he pushed a movie called The Cider House Rules.
John Irving novel. I've heard of that.
25 years later, which movie is still front and center? And it's terrible. It's just a terrible power structure sometimes with corporate control over creative material. The best movies I think were made when you hired great directors and great writers and just said, make the movie and left them alone. And it's not that way anymore.
I mean, that's presumably why they're such good directors and they're such good actors and they're such. I mean, they got to be good for a reason.
Yes. The great thing about Nora also was that she had this little Venn diagram of her life, which had all this Hollywood stuff on the one hand and all this political stuff on the other hand. So you'd go, one of the bucket lists of my life was at a party. I was at her house guest in East Hampton, and there was a party on the beach for Ben Bradley. Alan Pakula and his wife were there. Ben Bradley and Sally Quinn were there. Nick and Nora. I was in heaven, absolute heaven, thinking that these are people with guts and courage and principles and morals. And Tom and Rita were there. It was just a marvelous example of this combination of two worlds. And it doesn't happen now when you're being, puppeted by people from very far away places who don't even really understand what it is you're trying to. I mean, why make All the President's Men? All these movies, I think, should be required viewing right about now. Manchurian Candidate, Face in the Crowd, All the President's Men, which we just watched because of Robert Redford's passing. But these are the reason people became journalists. But her journalism roots were deep. And it's not a subject. I mean, I've been writing now for a little local organization called the Brant Laker. And it's mostly interviews. And I do two pieces a year. And I don't purport to be very good at it, although people seem to appreciate it or like the subjects I've chosen. But it's helpful. They like the publication. They like the attempt to sort of get to know the community, which is diverse. There's the snowbirds and then there's the locals. And it's a pretty wide gap to sort of bridge sometimes, but you have to try.
Well, yeah. So I guess before we wrap up, I wonder about this point in your career. And, Brant Lake is a long way from the red carpet. It's a long way from a movie set in Africa or Hollywood or any of those places. What's your feeling about being immersed in the community in the Adirondacks?
I think I've always believed in theater, in cinema, and I've always loved actors. So if there's however small that group is, if they want to attempt something, I think it's worth doing and it's worth bringing to the community. Yeah, it's far, but like I love this little theater, the Strand Theater in Scroon Lake, and their commitment to doing a silent movie and doing a film noir and resurrecting something. So I want to support those theaters because I think it can change your heart and it can change your mind. When you see a portrayal of somebody that's like you or somebody you would never, ever, ever meet in your life or know in your life or see a culture that's completely new to you, I think that's worth trying to distribute and to get people interested in. I mean, the power of the theater never goes away. Years ago, we made a movie called Breaking and Entering, which was about people from Sarajevo migrating to England and finding a life in criminality. However, the rehearsal process we had a NATO advisor, and we had people from Croatia and from Sarajevo and from Slovenia, and all of these people talked about, at the time, the siege of Sarajevo had been the longest siege of any conflict. And they talked about a certain day, just marked the calendar, and people said, that's it, that's enough, we have to do a play. And they went in the basement and they blocked out the windows. And, these were people who, they had nothing. Like they were sharing one cigarette between seven people. And yet their instinct to sort of get out of themselves and get out of their misery or get out of their hopelessness was to do a play. And when I heard that, I thought, I understand that because, there's nothing better than leaving yourself outside and going into somebody else's shoes.
This is what you do. This is who you are.
This is what you do. And the red carpet, I mean, it's fun. It's painful. From where I sit, pretty much nobody ever wants to talk to me. But it's nice to watch it, and it's nice to see people get excited about something, especially when the work has this potential to change minds. I mean, people forget that Nora was actually one of the writers on Silkwood, which is a predecessor to Erin Brockovich, right? But also a spectacular movie. I always wondered why, and I asked her many times. She didn't really have a good answer, except to say that it was much more satisfying to bring stories to the screen that would make people laugh and make them feel good, rather than dive into some sort of expose. And I think my father would have agreed with her. I mean, his favorite movie was It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. But she did make people laugh, and I was very, very thrilled for her when because after Bewitched, she was very down. But when we made Julie and Julia, she achieved what she wanted to achieve, which was like everybody came out of that film hungry, wanting food. And if people come out of this play thinking about a piece of clothing or wondering what happened to a piece of clothing or wanting to find a piece of clothing, then I will have done my job. Because it is about a very physical remembrance and how you felt in it.
It feels like it would be a big decision for someone going to see this play, deciding what they're going to wear to it.
Well, I had my first run through last night, and one of the actors, in the play, her husband is the lighting designer, and she put on her costume, and he really wanted to take her out after the show. So that was successful. No, it's a fun thing. I don't think they have to worry about what they want to wear to the show, but I think that if the show makes them think about what they put on the next day, that's good. Because I'm sure, and that's the other thing that's also true, Mitch, you and I maybe won't get the newspaper in our pajamas, but I do think we all have closets full of clothing that no one's wearing because they're wearing pajamas. So maybe if it inspires you to wear the stuff that's hanging in your clothes, I think if this goes on much longer, no one's going to know how to iron anything. They pretty much already don't know much about sewing. We'll see, but I do believe what you wear, just like what you eat, ups your game. Just up your game. You'll be taken more seriously, and you'll have more attention, and you'll command a little bit more respect.
If you don't look good, you won't feel good.
Yeah. Who said that? Did somebody say
I feel like it was I stole it from somebody, but I can't remember who.
Yeah, but I think that there's truth in that. I mean, even when you've had, or even when I've had an illness, like the flu, which I haven't had in such a long time, but even when you're down and no energy and lethargic, this day you start to feel better, you can make yourself feel another 50% better if you just get out of the bed, put some clothes on, comb your hair, start to re-engage with the world. I am a human, and this is how I present myself to the world.
I fortunately don't have to worry about combing my hair, but Dianne Dee Dreyer, thank you so much. It was a delight to get to know you, and I hope we'll get to talk again soon.
I hope so too. Thanks, Mitch. I appreciate you.
Dianne Dreyer is directing 3 performances of Love, Loss, and What I Wore, a play by Nora and Delia Ephron in North Creek and in Glens Falls, the former Hollywood I was going to say stagehand. That's not what she was. But she did a lot of different jobs, including directing, including producing, including working with this. She was a script assistant and many other things in Hollywood. She lives in the Adirondacks these days, and we had a chance to catch up ahead of that performance.
I think one of the coolest things about this conversation is her talking about bringing in are they non-professional? I don't know. They haven't acted before. Now they have, so they are now professionals. But bringing in people who don't have a whole lot of experience on stage to kind of like provide some of that like authenticity, because you know, these characters are supposed to be real people who are talking about the real objects in their lives that make a difference and shape their characters. And so I think it was a really, I haven't seen the play, but I think that's a really interesting directorial choice to use quote unquote unskilled actors. You know?
Yeah, I mean, actors who have skills, but they bring something different than somebody who has spent their whole life on stage or in front of a camera or whatever. And I thought that was among the most interesting parts of the interview as well, and how she approaches working with them by expecting a lot from them, even if they might not have the same kind of acting chops as, you know, Meg Ryan.
Yeah, but if you just bring people in and you trust them and they believe in themselves, then they're probably going to kill it.
That is what both of us are doing here.
Just making it up as we go along, but we believe in each other, don't we?
And that is it for another edition of Northwards. Ethan Shanty, tell us.
Why did you put on your 1930s old-time radio voice?
Suddenly infused with the spirit of Harry Shearer. Ethan Shanty, tell us who produces this program.
Northwards is an NCPR podcast production. The show is written, produced, and edited by Mitch Steik with digital production supervision by me. I'm Ethan Shanty. Caitlin Kelly handles our social media. Doyle Dean is our production manager, and Bill Hanel is our digital guy. To hear more conversations, you can visit ncpr.org/northwards, where you can also donate and support this program. It's ncpr.org/northwards. This is NCPR, North Country Public Radio.